The Child in the Storm. The night the heavens split open above Chandrapur, Priyanka Sharma was alone in her cottage, pressing wildflowers between the pages of her botanical journals. Rain drummed against the tin roof of her modest home, nestled among pine trees, a symphony that usually brought her peace. 3 years after losing her husband, Aditya, to a climbing accident in these very mountains, Priyanka had built a quiet life cataloging Uttarakhand's diverse flora for research publications. Lightning illuminated her small front garden where medicinal herbs grew in careful rows. Thunder followed immediately, making the windows shudder. Priyanka glanced at her rain gauge, nearly 15 centimeters since morning. The village elders had warned this monsoon would be the worst in decades. A sound cut through the storms. Cacophony, high-pitched and unmistakable despite the rain. A child crying. Priyanka frowned. Her nearest neighbors, the elderly Chopra couple, had no grandchildren visiting. She peered through her window but saw nothing beyond the curtain of water. The crying came again, desperate and thin. She grabbed her raincoat and heavy-duty torch, stepping into rubber boots before venturing outside. The mountain air bit with unexpected chill as she followed the sound toward the small shrine at the edge of her property. A simple stone structure housing a weathered Durga Murti that predated her ownership of the land. Huddled against the shrine's wall was a small figure, drenched and shivering. A little girl, perhaps 4 or 5 years old, clutched a sodden cloth bag to her chest, her dark hair plastered against her face, eyes wide with terror. "Oh my God," Priyanka whispered, crouching down. "Are you hurt? Where are your parents?" The child only whimpered, shrinking back. Her lips had taken on a bluish tinge. Without hesitation, Priyanka scooped her up. "Let's get you warm." Inside, Priyanka worked quickly, wrapping the silent child in towels, changing her into one of her own t-shirts that hung like a dress on the tiny frame. The girl's skin was cold to touch, her thin arms marked with scratches and bruises. She accepted a cup of warm milk but wouldn't speak, eyes darting around the unfamiliar room. The contents of her cloth bag revealed little. A handmade doll, with button eyes, a small metal container of fennel seeds, and a brass anklet with tiny bells. No identification, no note. The child wore simple clothes, a cotton frock now ruined by mud and rubber sandals that had seen better days. "What's your name?" Priyanka tried again, keeping her voice gentle. "I'm Priyanka. This is my home." After a long silence, a whisper. "Tara. Tara," Priyanka repeated, smiling. "Like the stars. That's beautiful." At first light, Priyanka carried Tara to Chandrapur's small police outpost. Officer Devon Rawat listened to her account with growing concern. "No reports of missing children," he confirmed after checking his ledger and making several calls. "The landslide blocked the main road to Dehradun. 3 families were caught in it, but rescue teams accounted for all casualties." He studied Tara, who clung to Priyanka's hand. Perhaps she wandered from a distant village, or was separated from travelers. For 3 days, Priyanka checked the outpost, while word spread through neighboring communities. No one recognized Tara. The girl remained mostly silent, occasionally whimpering in nightmares about water taking everything. When Officer Rawat suggested the overcrowded government children's home in Dehradun, something in Priyanka's chest tightened. The haunted look in Tara's eyes when she'd found her by the shrine hadn't entirely disappeared. "She can stay with me," Priyanka heard herself say, "until her family is found." "It could be weeks, even months," Rawat warned. "You need proper authorization." "Then help me get it," she replied firmly. "I have space, resources. She needs stability, not another trauma." That night, as rain returned, to tap against the windows, Priyanka watched Tara finally sleeping peacefully under a quilt Priyanka's mother had made years ago. "Just until your family comes," Priyanka whispered, though something in her heart already knew. The universe had sent this child to her doorstep for reasons beyond understanding. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying the scent of wet earth and new growth. Seeds of belonging. 6 months passed since the night of the great storm, transforming both Priyanka's cottage and life. What had once been a quiet botanist's sanctuary now contained evidence of a child at every turn. Colorful drawings taped to the refrigerator, a small pair of yellow rain boots by the door, and tiny handprints preserved in a clay project on the windowsill. Tara had blossomed under Priyanka's care. The frightened, silent child from the shrine had grown into a curious girl with an infectious laugh that echoed through the pine trees surrounding their home. Her nightmares came less frequently now, though she still wouldn't or couldn't speak about her life before the storm. The temporary guardianship papers Officer Rawat had helped arrange sat in Priyanka's desk drawer. Their 3-month validity extended once already. "You've done wonders with her," remarked Indira Chopra, Priyanka's elderly neighbor, as they watched Tara carefully watering seedlings in the garden bed Priyanka had built at child height. "She has your expressions sometimes, you know, the way she tilts her head when she's thinking." Priyanka smiled, but felt the familiar twist of uncertainty. "Someone must be looking for her." "Perhaps," Indira said softly. "Or perhaps she found exactly who she needed to find." That evening, after tucking Tara into bed with a story about talking flowers, Priyanka sat on her porch nursing a cup of chai as twilight settled over the mountains. She'd begun the process of inquiring about formal adoption, a thought that both terrified and exhilarated her. The logical part of her brain reminded her that Tara's biological family might still appear. The part of her heart that had been dormant since Aditya's death whispered that some souls find each other through mysterious circumstances. Looking at stars, "Priyama," came Tara's voice as the child padded onto the porch in her nightgown, using the affectionate nickname she'd created. "You should be asleep, little one." Priyanka lifted her onto her lap. "That one is bright." Tara pointed upward. "That's Venus. Not actually a star, but a planet." Tara leaned against Priyanka's chest. "Was I named for stars?" Priyanka hesitated. "I don't know, sweetie. Do you remember who named you?" Tara's forehead wrinkled in concentration. "Mama said I was bright like stars." Her voice became smaller. "Before the mountain broke." Priyanka held her tighter, this rare mention of Tara's past, both precious and painful. "Whoever named you chose perfectly." 200 kilometers away in Dehradun, Vikram Malhotra packed his camera equipment with methodical precision. At 42, his weathered face and premature silver at his temples spoke of a man who had seen both beauty and hardship through his viewfinder. His wildlife photography had graced international magazines, particularly his studies of the endangered snow leopard. But for the past 7 months, his camera had served a different purpose. His apartment walls were covered with maps marked with red circles and crosses, interspersed with photographs of his late sister Nandini and his niece Meera. The landslide had claimed Nandini instantly. Rescue workers had recovered her body still gripping the steering wheel. But Meera's small body had never been found, swept away by the churning waters of the river that had overflowed its banks. Officials had declared her dead after weeks of searching. Vikram refused to accept it. "I have something," said Rohan, his former army colleague now working in regional disaster management. "A report from a village called Chandrapur. A child appeared during the same storm, roughly the same age as Meera. No identification." Vikram studied the paperwork, his heart racing at the photo attached to the temporary guardianship form. A small girl with familiar eyes. "I've been searching every village within 50 kilometers of the accident," Vikram said, voice rough with emotion. "How did I miss this?" Chandrapur was cut off for weeks after the landslide. Their reports were delayed. "The child is with a local botanist, a Dr. Priyanka Sharma." Vikram stared at the woman in the photo beside the child, mid-30s, with intelligent eyes and a gentle smile. The caption noted she was a widow with no children of her own. "I'm leaving tomorrow," he said, already reaching for his duffel bag. "That's my sister's daughter. That night, as both Priyanka and Vikram lay awake, one dreaming of a future with Tara, the other remembering promises made to his sister. The mountain winds carried whispers of the collision course their lives had taken. The universe, having separated one family, was quietly orchestrating the formation of another. Truth like thunder. The jeep struggled on the narrow mountain road as Vikram navigated the final stretch to Chandrapur. Spring had turned the Uttarakhand hillsides vibrant with rhododendron blooms, a stark contrast to the devastation he'd witnessed during his months of searching. He rehearsed what he would say to this Dr. Sharma, oscillating between gratitude for caring for Meera and anxiety that she might resist returning his niece. In his pocket was the evidence he carried everywhere: Meera's birth certificate, family photographs, and most importantly, the matching half of a small brass anklet with bells that had been Nandini's gift to her daughter on her 3rd birthday. He'd found the broken piece near the accident site, the only physical trace of Meera recovered. Chandrapur revealed itself as a picturesque village clustered around a central square with an ancient banyan tree. Locals directed him toward a cottage on the outskirts, the plant doctor's house, with the colorful garden. As Vikram parked and approached the gate, he saw them, a woman kneeling in a garden bed, showing a small girl how to transplant a sapling. The child laughed as she patted the soil around the roots, and the sound made Vikram freeze mid-step. He would recognize that laugh anywhere. It was Nandini's laugh, inherited by her daughter. Priyanka noticed him first, straightening with a polite but questioning expression. "Can I help you, Dr. Sharma?" His voice sounded strange to his own ears. "Yes," she replied, wiping her hands on her gardening apron. The child turned then, and Vikram's last doubts evaporated. Though her hair had grown longer and her cheeks were fuller than in his photographs, those were unquestionably his sister's eyes looking back at him with curiosity. "My name is Vikram Malhotra," he said, struggling to maintain composure. "I believe you've been caring for my niece." Priyanka's face drained of color. Her arm instinctively moved to draw Tara closer. "Tara, go inside and wash up, please," she said with forced lightness. "But the flowers, we'll finish later." "Go on." Once the child had disappeared inside, Priyanka faced him squarely. "You'd better come in and explain yourself." In her small living room, Vikram laid out his evidence on the coffee table: photographs of Meera from birth to her 4th birthday 3 months before the accident, official documents, newspaper clippings about the landslide, and finally, the broken anklet. "Her name is Meera," he said quietly. "Meera Malhotra. My sister Nandini was driving from Delhi to our family home in Mussoorie when the landslide hit. Nandini didn't survive. Meera's body was never found." His voice broke. "Everyone told me to accept that she'd been swept away, but I couldn't. I've been searching for 7 months. Priyanka sat motionless, staring at the photographs. "Tara had an anklet when I found her," she finally whispered, rising to retrieve a small wooden box from a shelf. When she placed the anklet beside its missing half on the table, the pieces aligned perfectly. "She calls herself Tara," Priyanka said, tears forming. She barely spoke for weeks. She had nightmares about water and mountains breaking. Tara was her nickname, Vikram explained. Nandini said she was born under a sky full of stars. "Meera Tara," she called her. A small gasp made them both turn. Tara stood in the doorway, eyes fixed on the photographs spread across the table. "Uncle Vikram?" she whispered. The recognition in her voice shattered something in both adults. Vikram dropped to one knee, arms open, as Tara ran to him with a cry that contained both joy and confusion. Over her head, his eyes met Priyanka's, seeing in them the same storm of emotions he felt: relief that this child remembered, fear of what came next, and the unspoken question of what was truly best for the girl they both loved. Growing pains, the arrangement they negotiated over the following weeks felt tenuous to everyone. Vikram rented a room at Chandrapur's only guest house while they determined how to proceed. Tara, who now responded to both Tara and Meera interchangeably, seemed caught between worlds, clinging to Priyanka's routines while rediscovering memories with her uncle. "She needs stability," Priyanka insisted during one of their evening discussions after Tara had gone to bed. Moving her immediately to Dehradun would be another trauma. She's the only family I have left, Vikram countered, though without the anger that had marked their earlier conversations. Nandini made me promise to care for her if anything happened. And you believe I can't provide that care? Priyanka's voice remained even, but her hands trembled slightly as she poured tea. Vikram sighed, running a hand through his silver-streaked hair. That's not what I meant. You've done more for her than I can ever repay. But legally you're her guardian, Priyanka finished. I'm aware. The unspoken truth hung between them. Tara had formed a deep attachment to Priyanka that 7 months of love and healing had cemented. Yet her recognition of Vikram and the memories he triggered proved her connection to her life before was not entirely lost. Days stretched into weeks. Vikram extended his stay, integrating himself into their routine. He took Tara on nature walks, teaching her to identify animals by their tracks, as he'd once taught natural history photography to university students. Priyanka observed how his gruff exterior softened around the child, revealing glimpses of the man beneath the grief. One evening, she found him on her porch, reviewing photographs on his camera's display screen. She has Nandini's curiosity, he said without looking up. The way she examines insects, asks questions about everything. She asked me if we could all live together, Priyanka admitted, sitting beside him. In her perfect world, neither of us would leave. Children's solutions are often the simplest, Vikram replied with a sad smile. And the most impossible, Priyanka added softly. But as spring turned to early summer, something unexpected developed. The cottage that had once been Priyanka's sanctuary, then Priyanka and Tara's home, evolved again. Vikram's camera equipment found space on a shelf. His expertise in wildlife conservation complemented Priyanka's botanical knowledge. They began collaborating on a field guide to Uttarakhand's biodiversity, with Tara as their enthusiastic assistant. Not that tensions disappeared entirely. Vikram struggled when Tara ran to Priyanka first with scraped knees or nightmares. Priyanka felt threatened when Tara shared memories of her mother that only Vikram understood. Both adults retreated to corners to hide tears when the situation overwhelmed them. The breaking point came when official documents arrived from Delhi. Vikram had filed for formal custody, a necessary step he'd explained to both Priyanka and Tara. Seeing the paperwork made the theoretical suddenly painfully real. When would we leave? Tara asked that night, her voice small. After the monsoon, Vikram answered gently. You'll have your own room in my apartment. There's a good school nearby. Can Priyama come too? The adult's eyes met over her head. No, sweetie, Priyanka managed. My work is here. But you can visit. Tara's face crumpled. I don't want to choose. That night, after Tara had finally fallen asleep, Priyanka walked alone through her garden, touching plants she had nurtured just as she had nurtured the child sleeping inside. Grief and love had become so intertwined she could no longer separate them. Behind her, the cottage door opened. She's having nightmares again, Vikram said quietly. The uncertainty is affecting her, Priyanka replied. Children need security. Yes, he agreed, stepping closer. But what if security isn't about a place? Priyanka turned to face him, questioning. What if? Vikram continued carefully. Security is about people, not having to lose anyone else? His words hung in the night air, an idea neither had dared articulate taking tentative shape between them. Blossoming Family Monsoon arrived with theatrical timing, precisely as Vikram's custody paperwork was approved. The day they were to leave for Dehradun, rain pounded the mountains with such ferocity that roads closed and power lines fell. Nature itself seemed to be weighing in on their dilemma. Tara sat by the window, watching water cascade down the glass, her small suitcase packed and waiting by the door. The adults moved around each other awkwardly, the impending separation casting shadows deeper than those of the storm clouds. When the landline rang, the only communication working in the village, Priyanka answered to hear Officer Rawat's concerned voice. Flash flooding had destabilized the hillside above the northern end of Chandrapur. Evacuation was recommended for homes in that sector. We're on higher ground here, Priyanka reassured Vikram. But the Chopras will need help moving to the community center. They worked together through the afternoon, helping neighbors, reinforcing drainage channels, securing loose objects against the wind. Tara insisted on helping, passing tools and carrying what her small arms could manage. In crisis, they functioned as a seamless unit, communication flowing effortlessly among the three of them. As dusk approached, a thunderous crack echoed through the valley. From Priyanka's front porch, they watched in horror as earth gave way on a distant slope, trees falling like matchsticks. "It's happening again," Tara whispered, trembling against Priyanka's side. That night, unable to leave due to blocked roads, Vikram helped Priyanka monitor the rain gauge and drainage around her property. Tara refused to sleep alone, so they made a nest of blankets in the living room, the three of them keeping vigil as the storm raged. "Tell me about when I was born," Tara requested suddenly, looking at Vikram. He smiled, settling beside her. "It was a night much like this. Your mother insisted on driving herself to the hospital, stubborn as always. You arrived just before midnight, under a sky that cleared just long enough for stars to appear." "And my mother named me for them," Tara murmured. "Mira for your grandmother, Tara for the stars," Vikram confirmed. Tara turned to Priyanka. "And you found me under stars too." "No, little one. It was storming that night like tonight. No stars visible. But you're named for them too," Tara insisted. "Priyanka means beloved of stars, you told me that." The adult's eyes met over her head, something unspoken passing between them, a recognition that perhaps forces larger than themselves had been at work all along. Morning broke with unexpected brightness. The storm had passed, leaving behind swollen streams and scattered debris, but sparing the village its full fury. As they stepped onto the porch to survey the aftermath, a perfect rainbow arched across the valley. "I've decided," Vikram announced abruptly. Priyanka braced herself for what would come next. "I'm not taking Mira to Dehradun," he said. "At least not alone." "What do you mean?" Priyanka asked, hardly daring to hope. "My work is portable. I photograph wildlife wherever it exists. My apartment was never really a home." He took a deep breath. "I'd like to stay in Chandrapur. There's a cottage for sale near the square. Close enough for Mira to move between both homes easily." "You would do that?" Priyanka whispered. "For her," he said, then added more softly, "and perhaps for us as well." The months that followed transformed them. Vikram purchased the cottage and established a small photography studio that brought tourism and attention to Chandrapur's natural beauty. Priyanka's botanical research expanded with his help, documenting medicinal plants throughout the region. Tara, officially Mira Tara Malhotra on her school records, thrived with the love of both adults. They created new traditions, Sunday dinners together, full moon hikes, celebrating both the day Tara was born and the night Priyanka found her. The boundaries between their separate homes grew increasingly fluid until, on the one-year anniversary of Vikram's arrival in Chandrapur, Priyanka found him waiting on her porch with a question and a handful of wildflowers. "We've become something none of us expected," he said. "Not replacement for what was lost, but something new entirely." On Tara's 6th birthday, they formalized what had organically developed, a family created not by blood alone, but by choice, circumstance, and love that had overcome loss. Under a sky bright with stars, with the village gathered around them, they celebrated not just a child's birthday, but the rebirth of 3 souls who had found each other in the aftermath of storms. As darkness fell and lanterns illuminated the garden, Tara ran to where Priyanka and Vikram stood together. "Look!" she cried, pointing upward to where the first stars appeared. "They're all watching. My first family and my second family. Together." Vikram's hand found Priyanka's, their fingers intertwining. "No," Priyanka corrected gently. "Not first and second, just family." One constellation made of different stars. Around her neck, Tara wore the repaired anklet, transformed into a pendant, a symbol of what had been broken and made whole again. Different but perhaps stronger at the mended places. Like them.